If you run a company or manage a team, hiring qualified people quickly can make or break your business. Imagine a position of need going unfilled for weeks or even months because you just can't seem to find the right candidate. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. This makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results on your job post. Just in the last minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Now that is fast. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Go to Indeed.com/BWN right now to support this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply.
What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things Mac, all things football, all things sports, right here, Mac Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the greats, Mac, to everyone.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, part of the Varsity Podcast Network, presented by Lairfield. I'm Alex. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Graham. Graham, welcome back.
Yeah, we took a little bit of a break, although not so much of a break for me as I was all over people's Instagram feeds, I'm sure.
You were. You dominated the Instagram sphere, I think is the appropriate phrase. Maybe not.
I don't think so.
But Graham, you were very faithfully and very dutifully covering the MAC baseball tournament, and we'll get into that here in just a moment. But wow, what a tournament that was!
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting. I don't know that it was as exciting as we kind of hoped for, but there were moments, and I'm a big MAC baseball guy, so really just getting the chance to see that crowning tournament of the year was exciting.
Yeah, it was very, very, very much enjoyable. But part of that tournament, I guess we'll kind of dive into the end of year awards for the Mid-American Conference. The Miami Redhawks did a clean sweep of the end of year trophies. In fact, they won the Fred Jacoby Trophy and the David Reese Trophy. It's the Women's All-Sport Trophy for the Fred Jacoby and the Men's All-Sport Trophy for the David Reese Trophy. And looking at this resume, Miami had a really, really great year, and it didn't really look that close comparatively, especially on the men's side.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the when we do look at the women's side, Miami kind of gets a boost for not having as many women's sports as some of the other schools, because their average is better, because that's what we look at is the average per team. But on the men's side, Miami kind of walks away with this pretty easy. That's the next closest is Akron, which I know folks who only watch MAC football might be surprised to hear that Akron was that high in the standings for the David Reese Cup there. But in fact, Akron, if you'll remember, did pretty well in basketball this year,
a little bit,
and did pretty well overall in men's sports. But Miami walks away with that pretty easily. 57.5 points for Miami, a 9.58 average over all six of their MAC men's sports. On the women's side, That's Miami has 84.75 total points. Bowling Green in second place has 85.5 points. Alex, I don't know how good you are at math. Actually, I do know, so I'll go ahead and tell you. 85.5 is higher than Miami's total of 84.75. But again, that's Miami has 10 women's sports compared to Bowling Green's 11. So Miami's average of 8.475 is higher, and how they walk away with both trophies this year. Heck of a year for Miami.
Well, when you run down the list too, Ball State actually had an even higher point total than both of those squads, with 87.5. However, they sponsor 12 women's sports. So, but to your point though, Graham, absolutely dominant year for Miami. It says in the release here that they won 10 championships between football, 2 in baseball, men's swimming, field hockey, the regular season and the tournament, softball regular season and the tournament, and then a tennis championship. And then their synchronized skating team, something that I don't know about you, Graham, but I know that it's synchronized and it involves skating. They added a national championship in hockey, or in synchronized skating, for the 23rd time in program history. So a big hats off to them for just an incredible year. But that shows, to me, that tells people a lot of there's a lot of consistency at Miami. They played really well across all 3 seasons, across multiple sports, to find themselves in the winner's circle for both of these trophies.
Sure. And, I think we often, as Mac sports fans, get bogged down in the football and basketball of it all. And really this year, if you just did that, how great Miami was. They did great in both football and basketball this year. But Miami especially has been very consistent in their other sports. And that's what puts them up there in the numbers for these trophies. And that's, I think one of the benefits of this podcast but Mac Sports in general is this, reminder that there are a lot of great sports in the conference, and following any one of them is a blast. I know you particularly got really into field hockey a few years ago, and
love that team.
Now it's kind of your pet sport to watch within the conference. And there's a lot of great sports like that. When it comes to Mac Sports, they're pretty easy to follow, and they don't have that many fans right now, so you can become the number one fan pretty easily. Anybody who wants to fight Alex can take that number one field hockey fan for Miami field hockey away from him.
Please don't. It's the only number one thing I have in my life.
But I think this is a great reminder of all the great Mac sports that are out there, and congrats to Miami. A reminder that I think some of us Toledo guys start thinking it's just the Toledos and the Northern Illinois and some of those occasionally those Michigan schools that are the tops in sports, but the Miamis and the Ohios of the world are have a little bit to say about that as well. Not so much the Kent States, but
not so much the Kent States, and who knows? Maybe their fortunes will turn around. They've got golf on lock. Women's golf is on lock, men's golf as well. But Kent State had a pretty good year this year. For those who don't know, these trophies, obviously the points are awarded based on each school's finish, with their overall point total divided by the number of sports sponsored by each school, which explains the disparity in the women's side. But the women's trophy is actually named for the former MAC commissioner, Fred Jacoby. He was the commissioner from 71 to 82 and is often credited with incorporating women's athletics into the conference structure. Did not have a lot of conference women athletics prior to the 70s, so hats off to him. And then the men's trophy, named for former MAC commissioner David E. Reese. And Reese was the first ever commissioner of the conference and served the conference starting in 1946 to 1964. So almost a 20-year career serving student athletes in the Mid-American Conference.
Yeah, I mean, both these awards named after former conference commissioners, and both of them a big deal within the conference. And so congrats to Miami for their victory in both of these trophies.
We've got a little bit of MAC baseball. Obviously, as we just talked about, the Miami Redhawks won the Mid-American Conference tournament. Took in what they were the number 1 overall seed, right, Graham? Or
Yeah,
were they?
they ended up with that number 1 overall seed. They tied the regular season with Kent State for the final standings there, but tiebreakers ended up putting Miami as the number 1 seed going into the tournament, and they took it and ran with it. Alex, that's we talked a little bit about off air. We talked a little bit about the tournament structure, and baseball loves to do this double elimination structure, and the way it favors the number 1 seed and the number 1 or the number 2 seed in the MAC, where it's anybody who gets those buys in the first round, it's a big deal. MAC programs in general have a harder time with depth in terms of, especially in terms of pitching arms. So, for as far as our MAC baseball recap goes, the first 2 days of this tournament were the dominant force was the weather. The way it put pauses in we had both those days, the first 2 days of the tournament were scheduled for at least 2 games. And both of them were only managed to get 1 game in before the weather took over. And so that's hard for those teams who played. We thought the other team who ended up making the championship is Toledo Rockets. They ended up playing 6 games throughout the tournament, and we're saying it's almost like they played 7 because of that big break there, and with the weather delay. So to try and use your arms in an efficient way that doesn't spend all of your bullpen arms and really even burn through all of your starters. It's tough. It's tough to do that for Toledo, and to play twice as many games as Miami does before the championship. Hats off to Toledo Rockets as well. That's they came in with the 5 seed and found a way to take down rival Bowling Green. They eliminate both Ball State and Kent State, the 2 and 3 seeds on their way to the championship, and really just a heck of a season for the Toledo Rockets there. But Miami
bats came alive in this tournament.
Right. And that's exactly, all year long we were talking about pitching and defense for Toledo. That's was their bread and butter. That's what got them to the tournament. But, as we said, it's hard to continue up with the pitching when it comes to a tournament that says, hey, we're going to have you play 7 games in 5 days and find some pitching to go along with that. And that's tough. That's a brutal way to finish a season. And so the bats needed to come alive, and they did. We finally saw some Toledo hitting in the tournament, and it gets them to the championship game. On the other side, Miami takes advantage of their fortune and gets to the championship game pretty handily. And Miami looked great the whole tournament as well. That's great pitching, especially great hitting, and then a few defensive gems. The Redhawks absolutely deserved to walk away with the championship in this one, and they did. They had the regular season that put them with the 1 seed, and they come out on top as champions. I had a lot of fun, Alex, covering this on Instagram, doing those recap videos with the with the rundowns. And this is, as I've said before, is my favorite MAC event of the year. So it's a lot of fun to see both Toledo and Miami really have great tournaments. And even though Miami came out on top, it was a lot of great baseball to watch.
Yeah, and guys, if you did not catch those on Instagram, head on over to our Instagram. Graham did an excellent job giving you about a minute and under. I think that's what I was most impressed with, that you were able to compact all that information into about a minute or so, or less, for each game of the tournament. So if you guys haven't checked those out on our Instagram at the MSC podcast. Graham gives you a great rundown of every single game of the tournament, with some nice turns of phrase and alliteration as well. So hats off to you, Graham, for doing a great job on that.
Yeah, we know that you love the alliteration there.
So guys, just wanted to make sure, I know the season is wrapped up. We've closed out another year of Max Sports. Don't forget, if you're starting to prep for fall, for football, for soccer, whatever it may be, make sure you guys have downloaded the Varsity app by Learfield. It is free to download in the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, wherever you download your apps. With that app, you can actually listen live to all your favorite Division I college teams, hear calls from voices from across the MAC, Big Ten, SEC, Mountain West, and more. Make sure you sign in to save your favorite schools, sports, and content for easy access. You'll also find hundreds of incredible podcasts through the Varsity Podcast Network, including fan favorites such as the MAC Sports Connection, Group of Five Guys, the Sickos Committee Podcast, and many more. Download the Varsity app for free and listen to the calls and podcasts that bring your favorite teams to life. Just because the year's over doesn't mean content isn't coming through. We've still got college softball World Series going on, some great games happening today. We've still got the NCAA baseball tournament going on. You'll be able to listen to those calls through the Varsity app. You'll be able to listen to this podcast through the Varsity app, even during the summer off season. So make sure you guys download that today.
Yeah, I mean, just a ton of college sports still going on, especially with the baseball stuff, and really hard to follow all the baseball games unless you have some place to listen to them all in one place. And Varsity app's a great way to go.
Absolutely. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, the Miami Redhawks, surprise, in baseball, made it to the NCAA tournament. And I know you and I kind of had our hopes up for them coming into this, but I think they represented the MAC well.
Yeah, I mean, our hopes for the for the MAC champ, of course, are always to make it to Omaha. But our realistic hopes are that they win a game in their regional. That's the more realistic hope here. Miami didn't quite get that done for us, but we talked about Knoxville Regional, not the hardest regional to get sorted into, but certainly not the easiest. It's very a middle of the pack sort of regional. And one where the both the 2 and 3 seeds were going to be tough to face. The Knoxville regional, of course, is Tennessee's regional, reigning national champion Tennessee, who has looked great all year, and they've had especially great pitching. They face off against Miami in game 1, and really this is Tennessee's game from the very beginning. Yeah. Now Miami does do some things at the plate. Both Dylan Baker and David Novak are able to hit a couple of doubles, and then finally, maybe a little bit too little, too late, but Evan Applewick does hit a home run in the top of the 9th to give Miami their second run of the game. Unfortunately, this one goes Tennessee's way, 9-2. It was a great game by Miami, but Tennessee has excellent pitching and then just an onslaught of hitters. So a tough game there, but not unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, the final tallies from this: Miami had 2 runs on 5 hits, 2 errors. You can't have any errors against a team like Tennessee. Tennessee, who's going to come out and just be physically and just overall the better squad. I mean, they're hosting the regional. You have to play flawless baseball, and Miami just didn't get that done. Tennessee had 9 runs on 9 hits and just 1 error. But you're right. Tennessee dominated this one beginning to end, and about what we expected. What I didn't expect was this game against Wake Forest, and the elimination game between Wake Forest and Miami. Talk about hitting.
That's right. So that's the this game ends up as an elimination game for Miami because they do have the 1 loss already. But we were kind of hoping to see Miami get a chance against in-state rivals Cincinnati, who also ended up in this tournament. And that's now Cincinnati. That's a great story in terms of baseball this year. Kind of came out of nowhere, and had a really excellent season. Ultimately ended up very similar fate as Miami getting knocked out in the Knoxville Regional. But Cincinnati had a great year. We didn't get to see that Cincinnati Miami matchup because when Miami came up against Wake Forest, who classic baseball tough team. Now this was a hell of a game. I don't know how much of this game you got to watch, but Wake Forest and Miami come out. Both of them score 4 in the second inning, and this looks like it's going to be a shootout. And Wake Forest never really stopped. They score again in the third. They score 3 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, 3 in the sixth. So by the time we're ending up in these late innings, Wake Forest has tallied 13 runs already. Compared to Miami's 7, it looks like the Redhawks are out of it going into the 7th inning. Miami does score 2 to make it a little bit closer. But of course, Wake Forest comes back in the 8th with 1 to make it 14-9. And it looks like Miami's tournament is over. Then come the 9th inning, and the Redhawks battle back, scoring 4 runs in the 9th. Not quite enough, but finishing the game, 14 Wake Forest, 13 Miami, and ending their tournament run. But really, just a hell of a slugfest in this one.
Yeah, I was, funny enough, I was listening to some of this game. I didn't get a chance to actually watch much of it, but those middle innings, the 4th and 5th innings, was getting exciting because both teams were hitting, both teams were scoring. It was like kind of not a back and forth affair, but just let's continue to trade blows. So I was really enjoying listening to that. And similar to you, I thought, Miami might be done after that score in the 8th inning by Wake Forest. But then the 9th inning, they came alive for one final rally. Come up a little bit short, like you mentioned, 14-13 the final. Wake Forest sent the Redhawks back to Oxford, eliminating them from the tournament. But the numbers from this, Wake Forest had 14 runs on 16 hits and 3 errors, whereas Miami had 13 runs on 15 hits and no errors. Miami played about as perfect a baseball game as you could hope for. The bats were doing things like it was a great game. It's a terrible game for the stat sheet, but it's a great game if you love hitting and offense. This one was a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, I'm really, Baker and Novak have been great for Miami all year long. They were great in this tournament as well, in both games. And then Applewick hitting bombs when he needs to, stepping up to the plate and putting one over the fence in both games. Really a great performance by all 3 of those guys at the plate, and a great performance not just in this game and not just in this tournament, but throughout the year. All 3 of those guys have really led Miami on offense, and they did a great job this weekend as well. But it come up a little bit short there against Wake Forest. Now Wake Forest, if you followed the rest of that regional, beats Cincinnati, ends up knocking Cincinnati out of the tournament, and then beats Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So we have a final game actually starting here very soon for the Volunteers against the Demon Deacons, and one of those teams will move on. So it may end up that Miami is knocked out of this tournament by the eventual winner of the regional, which would be an interesting to see.
And for it to be a one run loss would be
right.
Be fun.
Yeah, that's the regardless. Miami's 2 losses in this regional come from the teams who are playing in the championship. So nothing to be ashamed of for the Redhawks. A great season by them, and even a great showing in Knoxville.
Absolutely. Should kind of sucks to see these spring sports kind of come to an end, but guys, you know what that means? That means we've got fall football previews coming. And I know Graham and I are going to be putting our thinking caps on, putting our research fingers to work and start doing some digging and diving into all 13 of the MAC football teams for this fall.
Now, wait, Alex, did you say that right? 13 MAC football teams?
I said 13, Graham. Lucky number 13 or unlucky number 13. However, vault 13. We there's a lot of 13s we could go with here. But we got 13 football programs to kind of do our deep dive into for this fall. And I'm excited. There's some really good stuff going on. some fun storylines to kind of follow for football this year.
And we're going to be excited to do those previews coming up here. So hang out with us all summer long. Maybe invite us on your family trip. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to work those days, but I could probably take off and we could go wherever your family is vacationing. That would be fun. And take us along with you in your travels this summer, and get a little bit of MAC coverage as you go about your day.
Absolutely. Guys, make sure you're following us on all social media platforms at the MSC Podcast. You can follow us on Blue Sky. Going to be trying to post more content over there, trying to grow our following over there. On Instagram at the MSC Podcast, Facebook, the Mac Sports Connection, and then, of course, our YouTube at MSC Podcast. Would love to have that love and support from you guys on all those platforms as we continue to preach the gospel of Maction. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week with our first college football preview for the 2025 season. Take care.